now. Walter Sisulu, Oliver Tambo, Paul Bogle, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Nelson Mandela. The struggle continues. Haiti, Bosnia, Serbia, Afghanistan, Palestine. Seem it right unto you dismay. We were born to be free, but survive such rough history. Yet life still goes on in the battlefield. Our existence is a mystery. Coming true from the start, they learn how to be.
Bay Hill News Network is an internet radio. We are affiliate with Fun City Radio USA, Cancardi Radio and Success Radio Canada and Blaze Nation Media Group. You can find Bay Hill News Network at www.bayhillnews.net.
Bay Hill News Network presents Inside Health, 30-minute program in which we explore the human body and functions. We'll share real-life stories and the latest in medical science as we look at related diseases, conditions, and determinants of health that affect quality of life. So join me, Vin Abbott, on Wednesday evenings from 8:30 for Inside Health on Bay Hill News Net, also on KankardiRadio.info.
Welcome to you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Inside Health. Trust all is well with you and yours, wherever you're located on planet Earth. Thanks for allowing us into your space at this time. It's greatly appreciated. And hi to our friends on St. Vincent and the Grenadines and all our friends in the Caribbean. And before we go any further, let me say that this evening, we're really thinking about lifting up our friends in Jamaica, our friends, our relatives, as they grapple with the devastation caused by Hurricane Melissa. And on a personal level, I hope I can connect with my cousin Orlando Sutherland, there in Jamaica. And for folks in Jamaica or relatives and friends who want to reach out, you can always reach us at Cancardi Radio at 1416-989-4693, 23, that is 416-989-4623. You can send us a message via email at cancardi.radio@gmail.com. That's cancardi.radio@gmail.com. If you have any information about loved ones there, anything you'd like to share with us on Cancardi Radio, particularly on this program, or on our program on Saturday, the Vin Abbott Show, or in your corner / Canadian content on Sunday, we'll be happy to hear from you. And I'm sure as well on bayhillnews.net with Monty Kippett, our chief engineer. You can reach Monty down there, yes, at bayhillnews.net. You can reach him at 1-784-529-8340. 1-784-529-8340. And I'm sure that Monty will be putting out, promos as regards how Bay Hill Network can really help in facilitating, the process of rebuilding there in Jamaica following the passage of Hurricane Melissa. We'll talk about cleaning up after hurricane later this evening on the program. Very important. Now, friends, Inside Health is a radio magazine health information program. Heard on KancardiRadio.info and BayHillNews.net simultaneously on Wednesday evenings. Our chief engineer is Monty Kippett at BayHillNews.net on SVG. And I'm your host, Vin Abbott, in the studio of Cancardi Radio, Toronto, Canada. Inside Health takes a look at the human body, the different parts, functions, conditions, and diseases that affect performance. We also take a look at strategies with possible solutions. We pay close attention to the determinants of health to mean all those factors with which we were born, we grow, we live, we age, ultimately we die. We do not diagnose nor prescribe. We, however, we refer as needed. Once again, thanks for joining us on this week's edition of Inside Health. Like we said earlier on, cleaning up after a hurricane is in focus this evening, and frequently asked questions on diabetes is also in focus. We're going to start with the diabetes aspect of the program this evening. Now, over the years, going way back to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, when especially when I was in health education in the mid to well, mid 80s into the early 90s, this is a topic that I've discussed a lot with my colleagues like Val Horn, Carl Brown, and others folks in the nutrition unit, Anthony Murphy, gone to the great beyond, Patsy Wiley, Paris, and all these guys, right? Diabetes. And since leaving St. Vincent and the Grenadines, both in Boston and in Canada, here in Toronto, the issue of diabetes, chronic diseases, that issue always surfaces, has been surfacing, again on my job amongst clients, patients, residents, and so on. Also on the programs, there nice radio, healthy vibes on Saturday mornings, and off air in just social discussions, and something that I hate to do. I hate to discuss health issues when I'm socializing, so I avoid that as much as possible. But the issue of diabetes uh, features a lot in conversations at all levels, and it's a serious problem. It's a global problem, and in the Caribbean, especially amongst blacks, it's a serious problem. It's a serious problem. It's also amongst all other populations. But the issue of diabetes has been plaguing us for years, for years. As a matter of fact, since since the history of humankind, and I referenced that in the program. So what we want, not so much tonight, but in the series, yes, what we want to do a series starting tonight on diabetes. And this is going to take us way, hopefully, God willing, into December. And we'll be taking a different approach than we normally take. And we're referencing material from uh, Canada's Complete Diabetes Guide for Type 2 Diabetes, 7 Steps to Prevent or Reduce Complications, the 7-Day Meal Plan, Answers to Common Diabetes Questions, by Karen Graham, ROG, CDE, Certified Diabetes Educator. As a matter of fact, I met this educator at a workshop, and this book that I'll be referencing, I actually won it in a quiz following a workshop that I attended with her. Yes, here in Toronto some time ago. And I'll be sharing some information from that to help us in this series, along with my personal, experiences and personal knowledge and all of that. We'll also be referencing material from Glaucoma, A Patient's Guide to the Disease, Second edition, by Graham E. Thorpe, based there at the University of Toronto. And we also be taking a peep into biblical principles of health, definitely, by Douglas S. Winnail, MPH, PhD, and other material with the passage of time. So that's what we hope to do in over the next few weeks, and as a matter of fact, for the rest of the year. Diabetes will be in focus, of course, along with other issues as we go along on this program. Once again, thank you so much for being there, and I sincerely hope you enjoy the rest of the program. So tonight, what we want to do, we just want to do an inventory, right? We're gonna look at some common questions that are often asked about diabetes before we get into definitions and things like that. What diabetes is, what is diabetes type 1, type 2, gestational diabetes and things like that. But just to get you thinking in terms of where we're hoping to go with this series on diabetes. So some of the questions that are normally asked, right, both in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and in North America, Canada. And by the way, if you have questions, again, you can send them to us. We'll try to answer them. kankari.radio@gmail.com. Send them straight to me. I'll be happy to try and answer those questions. Again, we don't diagnose, we refer, as the case might be. And again, let me just say this in passing, and it means a lot to me. We heard of the passing of Dr. Timothy Providence on St. Vincent and the Grenadines earlier on today, I think it was, from very reliable sources. And we'll be following up this story. Dr. Timothy Providence, I knew him quite well when I worked on St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The last time I saw him was when I visited St. Vincent a few years ago. And he was just in his shorts walking through Kingston, aimlessly seemed in his own way, pumped shoulders and all of that quiet. And I saw him in the market square. So I went across, "Hey, Tim, how are you doing?" And he looked up at me. He said, "Hey, this is Vin Abbott." He said to me, and I know it's you, Vin. And his usual funny way, we exchanged some pleasantries and all of that. And that was it. On behalf of all of us on Kankali Radio and Bay Hill News Network, we extend condolence to his family and relatives and friends and all the patients he served so well, all the babies he delivered, all the women he looked after in his clinic, and all gynecology and other things like that. We extend condolence, and we'll speak more about that. The importance of really being a good doctor, being a good Vincentian doctor in particular. Again, may Tim be of blessed memories. Dr. Timothy Providence, may he be of blessed memories. So back to diabetes. What are some of the questions that are often asked? What are some of the possible answers you might get? So the first question, obviously, do I really have diabetes? You go to your doctor and you do some blood works and all that. You do your glucose levels and all of that. So you want to find out, do I really have diabetes? The doctor says to you, your levels are off and out of range. And we'll get into all of that as we move along in the series. So you may not feel any different, which makes you wonder whether you really do have diabetes. And many people do not have any symptoms, but that blood test will confirm it if you have diabetes, right? So we will talk more about that, the blood test, the results, what they really mean, right? So again, if you're concerned that you have diabetes, if you have a history in your family, a family history of diabetes, it's probably a good thing to get tested. And the blood test should tell you whether or not you are pre-diabetes or you're living with diabetes, pre-diabetic or you're living with diabetes. Another question that is often asked, has been asked of me on numerous occasions as regards diabetes. Do I have to stop eating the sweets? Yeah, like chocolate bars and desserts. Do I? If you have diabetes, the answer to that is really, according to Canada Food Guide and all that around diabetes, is that you don't have to stop. You can have all your favorite foods, but in moderation. But in moderation. Because you see this thing here, we tend to believe that the problem foods are like sweets, like chocolates and cakes and all of that. And we tend not to remember that everything we eat, all the starches, right? The breads and the yams, the dashings and the white rice and other things like that, highly processed foods in particular. Everything has, for the body to use them, they have to be converted to glucose by the body. Whether you use chocolate bars or banana or whatever. for the body to use them to give you energy, they have to be converted to glucose. So the question is, whether it's chocolate bar or desserts like cake or pudding or dukuna or whatever, the message here is moderation. And of course, that is relative, right? It's a good idea to limit how often you eat chocolate bars or whatever. So if you eat them daily, you'll need to start cutting back. There are many wonderful lighter diabetic desserts that you can enjoy. And save the rich desserts for special times. Again, we'll be talking more about this in the series. So the obvious question is, then what can I eat? The truth is, you can eat mostly the same things you've always eaten, but eat less. Let me repeat that. You can mostly eat the same things you have always eaten, but eat less. If you eat a lot of fatty and sugary foods, you'll need to replace some of these with fruits and vegetables and other healthy choices. Again, not because you hear fruits and vegetables. Fruits in particular contain a lot of sugar. You have fructose and all these things in fruits. Again, moderation is the key. One particular question that I've heard very often is, will I go blind because I have diabetes? The answer to that is, having diabetes does not mean you will go blind. However, poorly controlled diabetes makes you more likely to have eye problems. May I repeat, please? Having diabetes does not mean you will go blind. Poorly controlled diabetes, however, makes you more likely to have eye problems. With good blood sugar control and regular visits to your eye doctor, you can do things that will help you have healthy eyes for life. Again, that is where we'll come in, talking about glaucoma and other things like that later on in the series. In reference to Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, I've known of many persons, I've had many friends, I've had to uh, be treated by dialysis. Again, we'll explain that. A couple of friends have died because of kidney failure and all of that. Many folks have had to spend all the monies, all their life earnings, and so on to get treatment because of kidney problems. I'm so happy to hear that dialysis services are now available on St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but a number of persons died because of lack of services in years gone by. So what is your role here? If you've been diagnosed with diabetes, it is important for you to know, I think, I'm encouraging, that having diabetes does not mean you will need kidney dialysis. You can protect your kidneys with good levels of blood sugar, blood pressure, and cholesterol, and by not smoking. Let me repeat that, please. If you have been diagnosed with diabetes, you're currently being treated for diabetes, and you're managing well, keep it up. Keep it up, encourage. Because having diabetes does not mean you will need kidney dialysis. You can protect your kidneys with good levels of blood sugar, blood pressure, and cholesterol, and by not smoking. So if you're well managed within your diabetes, your levels and all of that, keep it up. You don't have to worry about having to deal with dialysis. Another question, my friends, that is before us. Will I need to take insulin? The answer to that is, and when we talk about diabetes type 1, diabetes type 2, we'll explain that a wee bit more. But we're just throwing out questions for you to think about what we intend to get into when we get deeper into the disease itself, the condition itself, and treatment and complications. And some of the questions that have been posed of us here on Inside Health on Kankari Radio and the Hill News Network. So another question, like I said, will I need to take insulin? Well, not everyone who has diabetes needs to take insulin. If your blood sugar levels are high, insulin can be a good way to help bring down your blood sugar. Some people never need insulin. Some start insulin the day they are diagnosed. Others take insulin, yeah, others take insulin 5, 10, or 20 years after their diagnosis. Again, it seems to me that a lot of it is up to you once you've been diagnosed, working with your doctor, your nutritionist, your dietitian, your family, and so on to make the adjustments, right? Moderation, things like that. Following your doctor's advice and things like that. Right? So whether or not you after being diagnosed, you go on pills or you go on to insulin, a lot of it has to do with your lifestyle. You know, whether you're exercising, whether you continue to smoke and drink a lot of alcohol and allowing stress to get a better view. All those factors have a way with diabetes. A lot of it has to do with you and your lifestyle. But what is also important that the system needs to support all persons who have been diagnosed with diabetes. And I'm not just talking about the medical services, all those factors we call the determinants of health. You know, you know, if you're going to control the diabetes, you need to eat well, you need to have access to services, transportation, all of that. All those are factors that determine one's health, one's outcome, especially after being diagnosed with diabetes. Will I lose my leg like my grandma did or my grandpa did? The good news, my friends, is that the vast majority of amputations in people with diabetes are preventable. Yes, I'm going to repeat. The good news is that the vast majority of amputations in people with diabetes are preventable. Daily foot care helps prevent infections from happening in the first place. Having good blood sugar control is also important to help reduce the risk of infection. With care, you can keep your feet for life. I want to repeat this. The good news is, let's start this. Will I lose my leg like my grandpa, my grandma did, or my neighbor did, or a friend did, my spouse did? The good news is that the vast majority of amputations in people with diabetes are preventable. Daily foot care helps prevent infections from happening in the first place. Having good blood sugar control is also important to help reduce the risk of infection. With care, you can keep your feet for life. You know, and this is such an important area that we'll be exploring, because while it's true that the onus, the responsibility is on the patient or the client or the person to take care of feet and all of that, we also need to have the corresponding services at the patient's disposal. You know, and I know there are some services that like how do we cut our nails? Do we have the services, available, easily accessed, so that folks can go and get their nails cut properly, as against them having to cut their own nails, and next thing they might just cut their own toe and bam, there's a problem there. Bleeding is no good, and the process of gangrene steps in. The result is amputation of a toe, a foot, uh, below the knee, and things like that in terms of amputation. So we need those kinds of services to support our persons who are living with diabetes. I know there are some services, but we have been for years living with diabetes. There are thousands of Vincentians who are living with diabetes and hypertension. Some of them had diabetes and by itself and hypertension by itself, and many persons with both. And more often than not, persons who are living with diabetes, more often than not, There's a hypertension piece connected there, sometimes related to the medication that has been used. This is an area of concern, an area that should be we'll delve into some more as we get deeper into the series, my friends. I want to end here tonight with the questions. Next week, we'll have some more questions for you. Do I have to stop smoking? Can I eat in a restaurant? Can I still drink alcohol? How will diabetes affect the cooking I do for my family? Is diabetes going to make me feel sick? And all of that. We'll answer those questions and we'll explore as we go along more of the answers and get deeper into some of the discussions around diabetes. My friends, you're listening to Inside Health with Vin Abbott on Kankadi Radio and the Hill News Network. Thank you for being there. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're talking about how do we clean up after a hurricane. So that's my friends. We'll be back shortly. Thank you.
The experience that you have when you see people pull up with you, they just be like, I want to see like the brain and the teeth and everything. You want to explore about the blackfish. The last time they part 12 catch a big grandpa fish, like big.
Get ready for an extraordinary celebration. Tickets are now on sale for the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Association of Ottawa's 46th Gala, marking 46 years of independence for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Join us on November the 1st at 6 p.m. in Ottawa, Salle San Marco, 215 Preston Street for an unforgettable evening of awards, entertainment, philanthropy, film, dinner, inspiring remarks, and an exciting after party. Tickets cost $115 and it's all in support of our scholarship programs. Reserve your spot today by emailing svgottawaassociation@gmail.com. A gem of a celebration, inspiration, sparkle, and excitement awaits. Don't miss it. I'm dreaming of a little island.
When in Antigua, travel with Arvin Bully Bus services between Pigot's Village and St. John's on Old Fareham Road. We also conduct island tours 7 days per week, all in comfort, style, and safety. For more information, contact Arvin Bully 1268-764-2869. That's 1268-764-2869. You can now order your roti skins from Des Tasty Treats and Roti Skins at telephone 1784-528-2979 or pick up Des Tasty Treats and Roti Skins at Randy's Supermarket. More products are coming soon from Des Tasty Treats and Roti Skins.
Join Bay Hill News Network each and every Monday from 7 p.m. for a rebroadcast of the Vin Abbott Show that was broadcast on Saturday last on Kankard Radio.
Every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. you will hear a old-time story by Gene Abbott on
BayHillNews.net.
Bay Hill News Network presents Inside Health, 30-minute program in which we explore the human body and functions. We'll share real-life stories and the latest in medical science as we look at related diseases, conditions, and determinants of health that affect quality of life. So join me, Vin Abbott, on Wednesday evenings from 8:30 for Inside Health on Bay Hill News Net, also on KankadiRadio.info.
Well, welcome back to the Inside Health, Inside Health for this week. I tell you, right? I'm so caught up with so many programs on radio, right? Hope all is well with you, my friends. Again, we are reaching out in prayers and all the best wishes for our friends in Jamaica, Cuba, and Hurricane Melissa is going up north. Seems as though it's going north, east, and I hope it spares Bermuda and other places, my friends. And again, if you have information you'd like to share, you can reach Monty there at BayHillNews.net and also at 1-784-529-8340. And I'm sure Monty will share with our listeners on the network. Or you can reach me on our studio line at 1-416-989-4623. or you can reach us via kankali.radio@gmail.com. Remember, we are Canada Caribbean Development Initiative Radio, and Bay Hill News Network is what it is from the Bay Hill there, that beautiful hill there in the Arnosville area. For those of you, Cape Garden, for those of you from St. Vincent, we really hit a give a big punch globally. So you can reach out with information you like to share. If there's anything you like to share, whether it's a prayer or you have some information you like to share with friends. I know that we have many Vincentians studying in Jamaica. I'm not aware of what has become of our students. Were they, moved and transferred to some other location, some other island nearby? I am looking for some information on that. I know some of the islands did that, but I'm looking for some information on that. And on a very personal level, I have my cousin there, my good buddy Orlando Sutherland, with whom I was trained at the School of Nursing and Health Sciences on St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He went into, anesthesia. I went into mental health, and we have maintained contact over the years. And I know he is in Jamaica. He was on St. Vincent and the Grenadines recently, but I hope all is well with him at this time, and others who are there, all Jamaicans for that matter. So, beyond the wind and storm surge that whipped through coastal communities during a hurricane, storms remain a threat as they push ashore and weaken to what's known as a remnant low. Stronger storms don't immediately lose their strength, with some maintaining, tropical storm or hurricane status up to 100 miles inland. The greatest threat that accompanies a storm or hurricane making its way inland is flooding from heavy rainfall. The remnant of a hurricane can produce unbelievable amounts of rain, with more than 2 feet of rain not uncommon in especially juicy or slow moving systems, as was the case with Melissa, my friends. It was slow moving while it made its way through Jamaica. The speed, it stepped up its speed as it moved away from Jamaica, but it created real havoc going at a very grinding pace there in St. Elizabeth Parish and other areas there in Jamaica. Yes, it's good to remember that thing is flooding, whether it's from a stalled thunderstorm or the last gasp of a once mighty hurricane. You should take the same precautions as you would during any other flooding event, such as not driving through high water and not preparing to move to higher ground. And that's one of the things that I noticed looking at some of the videos coming out of Jamaica. Even while the hurricane was like really getting into Jamaica, guys were out, you know, cutting trees and doing that, being curious and things like that. It's a dangerous practice. It's important for us to watch the water. Friends, please be reminded that we are still in hurricane season. We are still in the hurricane season. Jamaica and other islands up north got hit. We are still in the hurricane season. So I'm asking you, please, I'm begging you, pleading with you, to please pay attention to what we are saying this evening. Watch the water. Flooding can do more than simply sweep away homes and vehicles, like what twigs in front of a garden house that is. Residents cleaning up from floods can end up grappling with economic losses, mold, chemicals, and even some unfriendly visitors. It is insanely expensive to stave off rising flood waters and endure the daunting task of cleanup after one of these torrents of water. 1 year of bad flooding can directly cost, yes, billions of dollars in damage and prevention cleanup efforts. The indirect cost can be millions more, from ruined crops, shuttered factories, and the homes and businesses destroyed and people destroyed by the flood waters. One bad flood can can be devastating, can devastate a small village, a small town. And we are seeing that unfolding before our eyes, so to speak, in Jamaica, especially here of St. Elizabeth Parish. Water isn't the only thing you have to worry about when towns and villages, communities are threatened by rivers overflowing their banks. The brown, murky liquid isn't always just water. It's rock sewage, toxic chemicals, oil, gasoline, medicine, and just about every other nasty, lethal thing you can think of, all mixed into one horrible slurry. And we saw that in some of the videos coming out of Jamaica. Well, a lot of stuff was floating down in the water, in the brown water, in the rivers, and all of that. And this speaks to the whole question of how we deal with the environment, how we dispose of our stuff as a people, especially in the Caribbean. Oh, don't forget all the ants and the spiders and snakes and other unfriendly creatures that are displaced, and the alligators and so on. All the creatures that we saw before our eyes. They can cling to any floating debris, providing an unwelcome surprise to anyone who finds themselves wading through the ink. Be careful with the water. That's the message here. Those who are lucky enough to have homes to return to once the waters recede can find some ugly surprises on the walls. Mold is huge and costly, yes? Mold is a huge and costly issue that plagues buildings after a flood. The mold is even worse if the water was especially deep or the flood occurred during the warmer months. The mold can be so thick and toxic that some homes are torn down because the task of removing it is so costly or just downright dangerous, especially for persons who are living with respiratory problems like asthma and other things like that. Friends, the truth is, yes, we think about the winds, yes, we think about the strong winds, we look at, oh, it's about 100 miles per hour, 125 miles per hour, whatever. Very often we don't think about what is before us with the flooding, with the waters, and how dangerous the waters can be. We are still in the hurricane season, my friends. We want to our friends in Jamaica and around other places affected by Hurricane Melissa. We are thinking about you on this program, Inside Health, on Bay Hill News Network and Kankadi Radio. We'll continue to monitor and we'll do whatever we can to help in the relief effort. Again, we can be reached at Kankadi Radio 416 989 4623, and Unity Cupid at Bay Hill News Network can be reached at 1-784-529-8340. And I'm sure Fun City Radio with Scorpion in New York, New Jersey is on board, and so too is Rosa Mohammed at Success Radio here in Toronto, Canada, all part of the network. Friends, this is where we end the program tonight. It's now 9:45 in the studio of Kankadi Radio. Sincerely hope you found the program useful. We invite you to join us next Wednesday evening when we'll have another edition of Inside Health. We'll continue talking about diabetes, asking some very popular, common questions that are asked about diabetes and more. Thank you very much for being there. Thank you, Monty, and all listeners of Bay Hill News Network. And thank you to all Kankadians for being there. On that note, we say, be gone.